So we worked on the issue E2418, which was to re-implement the due date model, and I'm going to mention the most significant changes that we have made in this project. At first, we started by renaming method names to be more appropriate. For example, this teammate review allowed method did not have a question mark before, but this is more ideal because it returns a boolean, a true or false. And similarly, there were a couple of other methods like this name. It did not follow the traditional naming conventions, so we updated that as well. There were a couple others like this method was earlier called current due date, but since it's an instance method of due date class which will be called on due date, called as due date.current, so it seemed redundant to have current due date as its name. After updating the names, we updated some of the code to use the latest Rails standards that were updated in Rails 5 and onwards. So this set flag method, it earlier would perform something like self.flag equal to true and then save, but using the update attribute helper method is what the latest Rails convention supports. So we updated that, and similarly similarly this function set due date, it was also using all these individual attributes were being updated one by one, and then submit due date.save was being called, which is not on par with the latest Rails standard. So by using the update method, we can directly complete the operation in with one single access to the database. After that, we decided to overload this comparison operator or the spaceship operator. Earlier there was a method which was a class method which was called sort due dates, and this overloaded operator pretty much performs the same thing. It sorts due dates as you would intuitively expect. However, it is more ideal to overload a comparison operator rather than having a separate method for sorting. So this is one thing that we did. After that, we considered what all methods can be converted from class methods to instance methods. And to be honest, there weren't a lot that fit the description. One was this one, which I have previously mentioned. And the other one which we converted was teammate review allowed. So this was also a class method earlier which is not required. It can just call the class self.current method to get the current due date inside of it, so it doesn't need to be a class method. However, for the other class methods such as this one done in assignment round, these are not called on any specific due date objects, and they are not related to specific due date objects. Even this one, get next due date, so it is appropriate for them to remain as class methods. And lastly, we added appropriate comments, as a lot of reviews on our previous submission mentioned that we should add comments for each method, so we did that. And in some places there were already comments, but they weren't appropriately descriptive enough, so we updated that as well. Lastly, in the test file, we updated the test file to cover all our changes, but we didn't have to make a lot of changes because the only test that needed to be updated was the test related to sorting. Here it is. So earlier this test was using the instance method of due date in the sense that due date dot sort due dates, and it was passing the list of due dates to that method, but we have updated it to this, where the sort method is directly called on a list of due dates. All other test cases are passing, none of them were failing, and for the other changes that we have made, they are already covered in those 18 test cases that are written for this due date file. And now I will show you by running all the test cases that all the 18 test cases, including the updated one, are passing successfully.